and welcome back for another edition of The Locker Room with your hosts. I'm Kyle Anderson.
Brandon Jones.
Matt Hirsch, not Brady Hope.
Sorry. And Reggie Huffman.
And as always, we're going to be talking about stuff where the BS stops and the analysis starts. And tonight we're going to be talking about a very serious subject, Penn State, and what was happening there and what happened when the NCAA decided to drop the hammer. Guys, we've heard everybody talk about this. We've heard the talking heads. We've heard ESPN. We've heard all the radio hosts. Now we're going to dive into it, and we're really going to get to the bottom of this. We all know what happened. Jerry Sandusky was convicted. He's going to prison. He's going to probably die in prison. And there's no probably, he will. He's never going to make it out because he sexually molested boys over a long period of time. Then some information came out in the free report where it apparently from his findings that the university, mainly Joe Paterno, the athletic director and the president, knew about this but decided to turn a blind eye. I'm going to go ahead throw the question out here right now. Guys, who thinks this was a good decision by the NCAA to do what they did to Penn State? Who thought it was a bad one? Matt?
Well, before we really get started, I kind of want to make a disclaimer that there's going to be a lot of differing opinions with this show. We need to go ahead and set the record straight before we get any kind of nasty Facebook posts or anything like that. There's no way around it. What Jerry Sandusky did was wrong. I think we can all agree to that. And even if we agree or disagree with anything in this subject matter, what he did was wrong. And we just need to kind of make that disclaimer first off. We don't endorse anything that he did at all. With that being said, your initial question, what was that again, Kyle? It was...
The initial question is, and remember people, if we disagree with what they did, it's not us condoning what Jerry Sandusky did. It's basically saying we're just sticking to the facts on this. Do we think the NCAA made a good decision by doing what they did to Penn State, or how much of it was, no, that was bad?
I think they might have tripped up on the right decision. I think that the way they went about it was terribly wrong, but if whatever's come out is absolutely true and applicable with the administration and athletic administration and the entire athletic department and football program, then yeah, it might have been the right thing to do, but that's still up in the air. I think that's still questionable with the free report.
Brandon?
I mean, when they came out, I knew that Penn State was going to get hammered, and rightfully so. But I think to the degree that they got hammered, I think the NCAA may have went a smidge overboard. I understand vacating the victories. I understand that. I can understand the bowl ban. I can understand the fines, but I didn't think that they want to get a 4 year. I thought maybe a 2, but a 4. It looks like the NCAA was a little bit excessive, and I understand why they did what they did. But in my mind, it's a little excessive.
Reggie?
I'm actually going to go completely behind the NCAA on this. I think that, with all the information that they have thus far, and there's still information on this thing that's coming out every day, but I think they actually did the right thing. Now, they clearly wanted to send a message. The message was sent. If they chose any situation with the university to send a message on, this is the one that they jumped on, and they really wanted to, send a no holds barred message on this. So I'm actually behind the NCAA on this.
And I think that's what I'm concerned about, is talking about the NCAA sending a message. I think that it was Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, that was really behind this, and his tenure, his administration has had a lot of turmoil. It's had a lot of questions with it, him leading the NCAA. And I think this was him trying to make a PR win for him. I don't think it was necessarily for the right reasons, which were for the children that were involved, that, for justice prevail for them. I think it was more for him to save face for his time as head of the NCAA. And I know that's kind of a big call out, especially with the situation is where you have to tread carefully, but I think that's what it was. I think that the NCAA did it just because they wanted to show who was boss.
Well, and the thing that's coming up that a lot of people are asking questions about is the NCAA kind of bypassed all of their own rules. They did not do their own investigation.
That's way wrong.
Yeah, then they took the free report. Now the other issue is you did not give Penn State a chance to come up in front of an infractions committee and kind of explain or kind of defend anything that was in the report. But I think also, like Matt, what you were saying is there are a lot of people that feel like, hey, I know you think you were doing something right, but this looks like you guys took this as, well, we're going to show that we're serious and we're going to do all these things. But the question, Brandon, I'm going to ask you, now that it's all said and done, we've got past the heat of the moment, the decision's been made, is there a lot of people that are walking away from this going, yeah, well, we served justice, we did the right thing? Or do you think there's a lot of people now that are walking away going, I think we may have been a little overzealous on how we handled this?
I think you might have a little bit of both. But what happened, it was disgusting. It was shameful. Okay, it was embarrassment to the university. Those kids will never be able to. They're adults now, but they'll never be able to recover from that. I think you get a little bit of both. A lot of people think maybe the penalties were too harsh, and a lot of people will. You got people complaining that the NCAA needs to do more. So you're gonna have people come down on both sides of the fence.
Some people thought they should have gotten a death penalty.
Yeah.
Reggie, what do you think?
I was a death penalty guy.
See, yeah,
I mean, I'm kind of like Brandon. I think it's a little bit of both. I like I said, I'm totally behind the NCAA on this. I feel like, I think that what the NCAA looked at it was this: hey, you guys weren't forthcoming with information. You basically put yourselves in a position where we can really go as far as we want with this. So just be grateful that we haven't just given you the death penalty. So, I mean, that's just my take on it.
Well, and I think that's a lot of people's opinion. I think that kind of having a dissenting opinion is very much in the minority, because if you look at a lot of polls that have come out, even on our Facebook page, and we've kind of had some questions about it, I think a lot of people have said that they got what they deserved. And I don't necessarily completely disagree. If it comes out that Penn State did a lot of cover-up, I think they got what they deserved, more than likely. But my problem is the free report. Guys, have y'all read any of the free report?
Mm-hmm. I have read some of it, yeah.
Was any of it any different than what you had heard before the free report had come out?
No.
And I think the thing got me about it, the second mile program was not mentioned one time in that report, and that's where Jerry Sandusky got his victims. He was taking advantage of these kids. And there's questions I have about Free himself.
Well, there's a lot of gaps in that report still, because, like I said, he didn't really do much extra investigation than what had already been released by the university. So how is the NCAA going to take that report and base their infractions on that? Because it basically took everything they already said, or the report took everything that was already said and basically turned it into implications.
I think what the NCAA probably based their information off of, I think the information that was the most damning to Penn State was the information that came out in the court case. That's what sunk Penn State. When I look at it, the information that came out in the court case is what's going to get a lot of people under litigation.
It's weird to me that the NCAA, who normally does their own investigations, own committee on infractions, their own due diligence, however poor it may be in my personal opinion, totally bypassed that in this process. And I think that in trying to find justice throughout the entire thing, by bypassing the just way of doing things, I don't think the old adage that your mom and dad tells you, two wrongs don't make a right. And I don't think that that's going to really be the case here.
I think NCAA is looking at it from a business standpoint as well. I mean, let's just look at how
that's terrible.
quickly.
I don't think that should be the case.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying, looking at the way that they handled it, I mean, they came down. I mean, it wasn't long at all before they just gave it out. These are the sanctions. This is how it's going to be. They really wanted this taken care of before the season started. Let's just be honest. They didn't want this to drag out, and I think that really affected how they went about it as well, because it probably would have taken at least a year to really go in and do an investigation.
Well, and a lot of people would say, hey, look, I'd rather you take your time. There's an old saying, it's better to arrive late at the pearly gates than to arrive on time in hell. And a lot of people felt like Mark Emmert wanted to do this before he went to London, the Olympics because he didn't want to get 80 million questions from the media going, hey, what are you doing about Penn State? Why aren't you giving them the death penalty? The question I have is, have we kind of opened Pandora's box, guys? Because think about it. The NCAA, in one instance, whatever the reason, bypassed their own rules, bypassed their own procedures, and basically said, well, we're not even going to do our own report. We'll take his report, and this is what we're going to go with. Does that mean if Sports by Brooks, Yahoo Sports, anybody says, hey, I did a report on Auburn, Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and it looks bad, can they go, well, you know what, we're going to take their word, and we're going to implement these policies? And the reason why I say that is, right now, guys, there actually is a bill up in front of the board of all the members, the board of directors for the NCAA, saying we want these type of penalties and these type of procedures put in place forever. Have we opened Pandora's box? That's the question. I mean, we did it in the name of justice, but now we've learned once you give somebody power, you can't take it back.
You give an inch, you take a mile, or they take a mile. It's vigilante justice almost, is what it seems like to me.
I think Pandora's box was definitely open on this situation, but you know what? The NCAA are saying, hey, let's close this box as soon as we can, and let's move on, and let's get to the Olympics, and like you're saying, let's get to the 2012-13 season.
It opens up so many other questions about other situations with players getting arrested for stuff that the university should have supposedly quote-unquote known about, or even, we've talked about off-air, the Bobby Petrino situation at Arkansas, that could have, federal lawsuit implications with the employment situation. Was to keep the NCAA from saying, well, the federal government sued you in one, so we're going to go ahead and throw the book at you here administratively.
Difference between those two, we're talking about isolated incidents, and we're talking about a culture that went on for over 14 years. Bobby Petrino, yeah, he lost his job, but he did it with a consenting adult. We talk about a culture where kids were brought in, and Reggie, you've been in a locker room setting. If something happened in the locker room, everybody know about it. Everybody knows about it. Whether they come to you and talk to you about it or not, everybody know what's going on with your teammates. So when something like this goes on and it's kind of hush-hush, that's something different than a kid going out getting arrested, a gun charge, marijuana charge, or something like that, a one-off. We're talking about something that's been going on for 14 years, and it's kind of like hush-hush. Don't say nothing about it. That old boy, that good old boy mentality.
But the thing is, the Free report, which is what they're taking this from, Free, who is the former director of the FBI, does not have a sterling record. I mean, the guy's mired in his own controversies, whether it's Waco, whether it's Ruby Ridge, whether it was he was accused of not sharing information with other branches of the government when he was there, whether it was certain things that Janet Reno herself, the Attorney General, said, I want you out because you are undermining the investigation. There's a lot of things talking about cover-ups. Then, to make it even worse, 2 years before he's chosen to do this, him and his law firm represent a Saudi prince who was being indicted on an arms dealing charge. I'm not saying he's a bad guy for that, but there's a lot of controversy around this guy. Why him? Why did you pick this guy? Why was he so damn special? There's a million investigators you could have gone to get. Why did you get him? And why did the NCAA stake their claim off of this one? Why did you hitch your wagon to this star? Now knowing that if it blows up, can Penn State come back and go, you know what, I'm suing you because you didn't follow your own protocol, I didn't have due process, and I had a gun put to my head and said, if you don't take these penalties, we'll give you the death penalty and this on top of it. Well, and it's been reported that that's been done.
I'll tell you why. Because the NCAA, they wanted to go ahead and get this out of their hair. They looked at him. They said, hey, this is just like fast food. Let's eat it while it's hot. Let's get this guy in here. He's, like you said, former FBI director. He has the credentials to make a valid report. We're going to get that out there, and we're going to ride on this, and we're going to make a decision as quick as we can.
I don't know how much more I have to add on to that, other than the fact that, aside from the fact that it's mired in controversy, I just don't think there's much to the report. I think that's the big thing to me, is that there wasn't much to it, and I think the NCAA could have really shown what they're worth if they'd have made their own investigation.
The thing about it is Penn State hired him because they probably figured he's a Penn State grad. He's going to protect his own. When all boiled down to it, I could give a damn less about the free report. Problem is that children were violated. That's with or without Louis Free. The problem here is Jerry Sandusky and that cover-up culture at Penn State. That's the problem. That's why I placed the responsibility.
And we did look into it. That Free actually graduated from Rutgers University, and then he went to a college in New York. So I know people were asking me before, is he a Penn State grad? Well, we thought he was. If we did investigation, he's not. And we're going to cover more in part 2, not only about this, but how does this affect college football now that these guys are going to start transferring out and going to other schools? What does this do? So make sure you stay tuned, because right now we're going to be coming back with part 2 of the Penn State scandal in the locker room.